Hey everybody, welcome to Room and Board. My name's Chris George. I'm thrilled that I'm doing this video because I hate an underdog story and I want everyone to fail. Actually, no, I was really hoping that I would have to do one of these on Euthia, Torments of Resurrection, because I wanted it to break over that $1 million bar. For those of you who don't know, this is a series that I do whenever a board game campaign, reaches over that $1 million bar on any crowdfunding platform. I will put out a video telling you the 5 reasons you shouldn't back that game. And this is no different. I will provide you reasons why Euthia may not be for you, but I'm also very happy to do so because it means it has hit that milestone. It has come back from the dead. Over on GameFound, we only raised half as much. It's back now under the guidance of Steam Forged Games, and I just love that it's happened. I love that it's happened for the designers. I love that it's happened for all the fans, all of those people who were so excited to get the game when it was launching last time and were so disappointed that they had to cancel due to financial reasons. And so the premise of the series, as I always like to start out with, is to make sure that that excitement doesn't outweigh the game. That you will be equally excited for the game when it arrives at your door, as you are right now, as you are contemplating hitting that purchase button. And it's a big decision. It's a big decision. Euthia comes with a fairly hefty price tag, although that is, in a sense, one of the things that I am slightly excited about. I always like to start out with what I am excited about, and there's quite a lot for this campaign. And one of them is that that price bump didn't increase even further. I think there's a tendency with these games, whether they're reprints or things are coming back to Kickstarter, when you know that there's a certain amount of demand, and you know that that demand was fulfilled the last time, in pushing up the prices just to make more money or make it a little bit more successful than it was the last time. But the interesting thing about this campaign is that, at least for the core pledge, the all-in pledge, the price has been raised a little bit over here on Kickstarter. Actually, more than a little bit, like £40 more. But the core game itself is basically the same price. It includes a number of expansions that were optional in the previous campaign, and it just bundles them all in for the sake, I think, of simplicity. Simplicity of choice. You have this pledge, you take it or you leave it. What are you gonna do? Probably saves them some money in logistics as well, figuring things out. But when you go back to the previous campaign, the main game was £110, the Elemental expansion was £32, the Griffin expansion was £8, that altogether is £150, and the current price for Euthia is £152. And hey, this time around, you get the Necromancer character, which might have been a stretch goal last time. We never know. We never got to it. In addition to that, because you're getting minis, they've also thrown in a free black wash over all the minis just to let all the details pop a little bit more. And this usually costs an extra price. It would have cost a price in GameFound, but it's not costing an extra price this time. You get that for free as well. And this is really exciting and refreshing to me, even with that larger price point. And we will talk about the price point. I just think that is really great that it at least has stayed comparable with where it was in the past campaign. Also, and I'm not sure if this was in the last campaign or not, but it is increasingly rare in the sort of Kickstarter space or the crowdfunding space, that is included in the price. So while it is a high price point, it may not be as high as some other games that don't have the VAT actually included. So you have to check that out for your own region, but I know a lot of people in Europe, they will be very excited that this is one price point that they don't have to worry about, that they can forget about the extra fees down the line. They just have to worry about the additional shipping. But that's also great. For a game that is very expensive, it's nice to know that it's not going to be continually expensive. And honestly, the gameplay looks fun. I like being able to go around and explore monsters and tech up your character, go to different locations, move things around, have different choices. The overarching nature of the gameplay feels fun to me. And I can see that the gameplay looks like it's not gonna suck, which is important when you are purchasing something at such a higher price point. And on that note, the other great indicator of the support for the game or people's enjoyment of the game is to look at the returning backer pledges. And in this case, the returning backer pledges and the all-in pledges are almost the same number currently at the time of this video as it's being recorded, and it's recorded almost as it's crossed the $1 million threshold. I'm assuming it will, and I haven't just wasted all this time and it's just going to tank from here on out. You have around 1,000 people who are returning backers and 1,300 people who are doing the all-in pledge, and then 500 people who are doing the new core pledge. So while the new people to old backers ratio is sort of 2-to-1, it's still pretty incredible that there are 1,000 returning backers. And especially when you consider that their first Kickstarter campaign had around 4,000 backers. After you take out the $1 pledges and the retailer pledges, you're looking at around 3,300 backers. To have 1,000 of those backers come back and be interested enough in the game to shell out probably more that they spent in the original campaign is a really telling statistic that the people who are enjoying this game and enjoy the style of game are enjoying it to a degree that it warrants backing it again in the future. And so that's pretty cool. That's really cool. That's nice to see. It makes me smile, but the smiles need to stop now. And honestly, I might never smile again. Now that I've hyped you up, I've blown you up like a balloon, I need to stop Euthia from blowing you away and pull out my little prick and just pop you right off. Pop you out of the FOMO sphere and back onto hard, rocky ground, because this is what I am legally obligated to do as a creator on YouTube. So here we go. These are the 5 reasons you shouldn't back Euthia, Resurrecting the Torments of Resurrection. And reason number 5 is, of course, the incredibly high price point. And not only that, but the fact that things are forced upon you. While I understand that it may make sense to bundle everything together for Steamforge's sake, that doesn't necessarily keep the consumer at the forefront as well. The minis of that elemental pledge are forced upon you. The minis in general are forced upon you. In the original game, there was a standee pledge and the mini pledge. Now you get both, because some people like the standees, some people like the minis. So yeah, they're all just gonna be thrown into the same box. And I get it. I understand it from that sort of production point of view, and I like that they're throwing that sort of stuff in. But again, it only contributes to a high price point. Honestly, one of the highest price points that I have ever seen in a core box crowdfunding campaign. It's £182 because you have to also factor in the shipping. That's $282 Canadian for this core pledge. That's more expensive, I think, than Iridia was, and that was a huge campaign as well. And if you were to go all in with the shipping, in Canada, that's $635 Canadian. These amounts are mind-blowing to me. These amounts are too much for one single board game that you're probably not gonna play all of it for a long time if you have a collection of any sort of size. The fact that we'll still return to the core pledge because I think that's more worth talking about. I don't know, you all-in pledgers, you're probably too far gone for me, seriously. Money clearly has no impact to your life, or if it does, you need to take a step back. But it is bundled together, and I like this bundling. I like this for the sake of simplicity. I like it because it's easy to understand and it's easy to see what you get, but at the same time, I also know that the original game was £79 way back in the day. And so the uptick in price combined with the additional things that are being forced upon you that weren't considered necessary for the main game because they were kind of left to the side. They weren't incorporated into that main game. So therefore, I believe that they aren't that necessary. Even though the elemental expansion does do a neat thing mechanically, the elemental spots on the board, they kind of act as a race to get there first mechanic. Where if you get there first, it's great because then if the other players try to complete that same sort of quest area or confront the elementals, whatever you want to call it, they also have to pay additional coins. So I like how that works mechanically on the board, but it's not something that you necessarily need minis thrust upon you for, and it's not necessarily something that needed to be in this core box experience. And so I think that could be a legitimate reason not to back Euthia, is because you're getting too much stuff and that higher price point is forced upon you, and it is just frankly too much money. Now, reason number 4 I want to get to is that the FOMO is strong with this campaign. The wheels of marketing are turning as hard as they possibly can, and there's a lot of things in this campaign that I am not a huge fan of. I'm not a huge fan of the shorter timeline. It's only around for 10 days. And that's significant because a lot of the stretch goals are free if you pledge right now. If you lock in your money right now, you get these stretch goals for free. If you are unable to do so during this 10-day campaign, sorry, you're out of luck. You're going to have to pay for them later on. Like the Necromancer expansion, which I think adds that value and is an exciting add-on because you get an extra character, and who doesn't want another playable character? I always do. There's an updated Dwart die that people were clamoring for. Again, this is only free during the campaign. And so that, combined with the shorter Kickstarter timeline, this could be on Kickstarter for a longer time. I don't always see the reason for the length of time in a campaign other than to try to lock in things early and then move to the pledge manager when you can get, more money, and Kickstarter doesn't take the 5%. In addition, it flat out says, and it says pretty overtly, that this is not going to retail. You'll be able to buy it on Steamforge's website and through this channel, but you won't be able to get it at large retail stores. And that just makes sense when you think about it, because the size of the box is going to be huge. This is a very big game, chock full with a bunch of stuff added on, whether you like it or not. So it won't make sense for retail channels to pick it up. Anytime a game says it's not going to be in retail, that also elicits that sense of FOMO. That feeling of, I'll never be able to get this if I don't pull the trigger right now. And it doesn't matter if I don't know what's going on. I just feel like I need to pull it right now and then figure it out, because people say it's good, so I'm sure it's good for me as well. And I saw in the comments, reading through when I was looking at the campaign, I saw in the comments people are asking, oh, hey, if I pay $1, will I still get access to the pledge manager? Like, I'm unable to get the funds together right now, but I really want this game. I hate that. I hate that these marketing tactics of you must pledge now and lock in your money so that they know that they have a set amount, which makes sense from a business standpoint. I understand where it comes from, but I hate that it sometimes comes at the expense of those with a lower price bracket who are getting the money together and who will really enjoy the game, are unable to do it in that 10 to 9 day time frame, and so are forced to pay more because they're unable to get those funds together. That never sits right with me. So the feeling of FOMO, I feel, has been thrust right to the forefront. On top of that, it went away the last time and it didn't fund, and all of those things combined make this a campaign that is just filled with that feeling of missing out, and you should not be backing on the backs of those reasons. I don't think so. I don't think this fear, this FOMO, this animal sensation that it evokes in us is necessarily a solid mind state at which you should spend quite a lot of money. Now, moving on to reason number 3, which we kind of just touched upon in a throwaway line, and that is that you don't know the main mechanics of the game. You're shooting first, you're asking questions later, and this is where I'm going to talk about, the game mechanics part of the game, because I've looked into it. But I wonder, if you're watching this video, how many of you know more about the game than just a high-level overview? I want you to pause and ask yourself, what do you know about this game? Specifically, what do you know about this game? You probably know that it's a scenario-driven adventure where you level up your character in this sandbox-style game which has cooperative, solo, and competitive modes. That's the line that's pushed. That's the breakdown to quickly make you understand what this game is about. And I think those breakdowns are important, but I also think it's equally important to know the actual mechanics of the game. Do you know that you can take your actions through action tokens? Do you know that you have a choice between choosing movement or choosing actions? So you will have to plan how you navigate on this board so that you have enough movement points to get to the spaces that you need to activate your actions and get those resources and mine stuff and whatever you need to do. Do you know that every time you move to an open hex where there aren't hexes surrounding it, you then add new map tiles and the map can grow exponentially? Do you know how combat works? Do you know that you're going to be trying to collect stat modifiers? Somebody else will play the monster and have a limited amount of cards to fight back as you heal yourself and heal yourself again and then try to strike the monster dead over and over, rolling dice in a dice-driven combat. Did you even know that the combat was dice-driven? If you didn't know these things, I think you're likely being swept up in the campaign itself and not the actual game. And sure, those things that I said might sound exciting, or they might just sound, yeah, okay. And if they do just sound, yeah, okay, then back out. And honestly, this is the type of game where it feels like there won't be a huge amount of interaction. It feels like it'll be your own sort of solo experience as you navigate this board as a solo player, rather than having a super dynamic interaction for 2 points because of how the monsters are determined, that one player has to play the other side of the monster, and it needs to be automated, and there's a whole system for determining that. But I guess that doesn't even really make sense. Okay, scratch that as a point. But I'm leaving it in the cut in case it does make sense to one person. Hi, Joel. Joel just gets me. But it also doesn't feel necessarily interactive because of the way the map expands. And there's actually a little side note that says, okay, listen, you got to decide beforehand how big the map's going to be, because it can get huge. It can fall off the tables. You just have to say, okay, it can't go further than this point or this many hexes. And I think that's such a weird caveat, that the game expands so much that you're going to be so spread out from each other, that I feel like you will be just living in your own little world and taking down monsters who provide you the bulk of your reputation points, rather than what I would want, which would be running quickly in to kill a monster before your friend can do so. Or like what we talked about in the Elemental expansion. So that's reason number 3, mechanics. Now, reason number 2 is also mechanics, but this reason is that you don't like Mage Knight, or you have no desire to get Mage Knight to the table, or any other game that feels like this sandbox nature. But it has been most likely compared to Mage Knight fairly frequently, because Mage Knight, again, is one of the more well-known sandboxes in this style. And having looked at both rulebooks, I can see a lot of comparisons between the two. I can see a lot of differences, but I can see a lot of comparisons. And I'm not even necessarily including this to talk about the gameplay aspects of Mage Knight, or the fact, that they're both kind of scenario driven, or the fact that the cooperative mode is kind of lacking, unless you get this other expansion, which apparently fixes it and makes it a great co-op mode in both cases. At least that's what I've heard through scouring the internet. But I would imagine this is the case, that the competitive mode is better, mainly because of how you get reputation points. Like I said, the monsters are kind of the bulk of the reputation points. When you attack one, specifically the other character plays the monster and does their best to kill you, because if they do, then they get points and you don't. And so that feeling and that mechanic directly supports that competitive aspect versus the cooperative aspect, where you're like, well, I probably don't want to kill you, or it's automated in some way, right? But the main point, to circle back to Mage Knight, is more, have you thought about getting Mage Knight to the table? Because Mage Knight is $100, $80 to $100 right now. You could probably find the Ultimate Edition for that much, and that's the current edition that's on offer. But to me, Mage Knight feels like a lot of work. I think Mage Knight looks really cool. It actually, spoiler alert for the solo bracket of the death matches that I do on this channel, but it won our solo death match. It was voted on as the best solo game of all time by numerous voting polls, not just the own personal death match, which is, the most important one. But when I consider the amount of effort that it will require me to get Mage Knight to the table and to actually play it and enjoy it, even though I am absolutely sure that I would love the game and really enjoy it, I'm currently not willing to put in that effort, or that effort makes me go, I'll just play something I know. And so if you have that tendency, how is that tendency going to change for Euthia? How is it going to change for Euthia? How is it going to change for Euthia? Any of them. Because I imagine for a lot of you who like this style, this will be a really solid home run. That's what I've been getting from the campaign. But I imagine for a lot of other people who think they want to dive into this style, chances are it's likely to sit on the shelf. And finally, we're at number 1. The number 1 reason you shouldn't back Euthia Torments of Resurrection is if you are getting swept up in the resurrection. Like I said at the beginning of this video, I love the story. I love that Steamforge has brought this game back from the dead. I love that people are getting it, who are excited for it, and who want to get it into their hands. And I want to be a part of that. It's this exciting scenario that doesn't happen that often, of a game getting a second chance. And it feels like a cool thing to be part of. And honestly, that is the number 1 reason why I am interested in getting Euthia. I wasn't really that interested back in the first campaign. I saw it happen and I was like, it's probably a bit too expensive for what I would get out of it. And now it's even more so. And yet I want to get in on it more so because of the story. Because it taps into that part of me that wants to help people, that wants to contribute to a person who I met at summer camp, their surgery in a foreign country so that they could get the surgery sooner and be able to walk, their GoFundMe campaign. It's that part of me that wants to contribute to this as well. It's that part of me that wants to sweep in and be the hero and be part of the movement, right? It taps into that same part of you that gives to charity, that gives to good causes, that gives to the Room and Board Patreon. When you have someone like me who's constantly contributing to my good friend who's a single mother, her small child's RESP. And not just because I think it'll get me more RESPECT from YouTube. Have you seen all the virtues that I've signaled? Because there's plenty more where that came from. No, I say that in jest. I bring this up because it's a good story. It's something that you want to contribute to, but you don't want to contribute to it because of the game. And when that game finally arrives at your door and you receive it, you'll go, yeah, this was a cool thing that I backed. I helped bring to life. I helped it be a soaring success. I was behind the movement that started more game companies reaching out to smaller games and building them up. I mean, let's be clear, Euthia was never really a small game. It raised $438,000 in its first run, and then it was going to raise over $500,000 in its next one. I understand that the costs were greater than the actual money and cash flow, but it was still, lots of people were spending money on it. But if that's the reason why you're backing, I don't think it's good enough. Anyway, those are my 5 reasons why you shouldn't back Euthia. Make sure to drop your own comments down below if you were part of the first campaign. If you're a returning backer, especially drop your thoughts and feelings and experiences with the game and why you love it so much to return for a second time. That'll help so many people make their decisions and figure out if this is a game for them or not. Or drop your own reasons why you're not backing as well, because usually they're a lot better than mine. And I like hearing them. I like being convinced one way or the other. For me personally, I don't think there's a real chance of me backing this game, mainly because of the price point. It's just way too much. I think for this price point, you have to be overwhelmingly excited about the prospect of this game, like I am for Iridia, like I was for Ankh, even though that didn't end up hitting with me and I ended up getting rid of it. I think for that price point, to shell that amount of money out, or at least for me, it's not quite at the level of excitement as I would need it to be. It's at that, I'm really intrigued and I really want it, but I can't put my finger on why. You can kind of put your finger on it. It's all of the things that are happening behind the scenes. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I hope you found this video helpful. If you're still here, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. Please, oh God, please. I know people say this all the time, but just for once, just do it. Just listen to me. Listen to me, and I know, okay, I'm coming on too strong. I get it, but seriously, just do it. Or hit the dislike, you know, and tell me to go kick myself in the face. 1,000 dislikes, and I'll get stretching, I guess. Anyway, hope you found this video somewhat entertaining and helpful. My name's Chris George. I don't have a catchphrase, but always remember, there's no U in Euthia, so you can't get, oh no. Well, at least there's no I in Euthia. Oh no. I'll see you in the next one.